member of the Holy Catholic Church.
The latest negotiation deal.
A question about whether actors shape their character.
Really, J.K. Rowling is the one who made Emma Watson who she is.
And there are people who are looking for attention.
Normally you're dressed very sharply. Now you
Robbed a drug dealer on the way.
I had not considered that.
I know they notionally have, but can you see them agreeing to that?
All right, James, are we live?
Sure.
We are.
Why not?
Great.
Do it, brother.
Good to see you, buddy.
You too.
Haven't seen you all week. Welcome to our listeners out there. Thanks for tuning in. James, we're not actually recording on a Sunday today like we normally do. We're actually a bit late. Do you want to tell me why that is?
I had my wisdom teeth out, mate. And so instead of seeing me in my Sunday best, as per usual, with my best scarf on, just for the haters, you're looking at me in my work clothes, my everyday attire.
Yeah, I couldn't help but notice you're dressed a little bit differently today. What's with the outfit today? Normally you're dressed very sharply. Now you still look fantastic, I think. The tracksuit bottoms and the hoodie suit you well. But any reason for the sudden change in attire today?
I'm glad you like it, mate. No, I just robbed a drug dealer on the way here. Waste not, want not, right?
Okay. Did you get any drugs from him by any chance as well?
We'll talk about that off camera, buddy.
No worries.
Yep.
Excellent. Interesting week, mate. Anything been, other than you getting your wisdom teeth out, anything been happening on your end?
Not much. I've just sort of been chilling in bed, eating ice cream on a lot of painkillers. So pretty much my standard week, actually.
Okay.
Nothing unusual there.
My week actually went surprisingly well. Had a very productive week at work. Team's going well. Everything's good. It's school holidays, so been looking after the kids a bit and stuff, taking them to the zoo. And
you went to the zoo, did you?
Yeah. Well, we have a annual membership to the zoo. The Canberra Zoo is actually a very underrated facility here in Canberra. I recommend everyone go check it out. It's way better than any zoo in Sydney that I've been to.
Big call.
Yeah. I mean, look, my thing is that it's been a while since I've been to Taronga Zoo or anything in Sydney. Is it still called Taronga Zoo?
I don't know. They might have sold the naming rights to someone.
Perhaps, maybe some Chinese consortium.
It's called the Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yes. Actually, we might
Netanyahu Zoo.
Yeah, the Netanyahu Jew, the Netanyahu Jew, the Netanyahu Zoo. No, Canberra Zoo, guys. For all our listeners out there, if you've got kids, young or old, fantastic facility. I highly recommend it. If you get the yearly pass, if you go 4 times, you're ahead. It's great. It's the standard kind of hangout spot for the kids and I and the family. When we have nothing to do and the weather's nice, we go to the zoo. They have a great cafe there. They have a great playground. Speaking of Netanyahu and naming rights, James, we might be changing the name of our podcast soon. Is that not right?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Shalom. Shalom cast.
Yes. Yeah. That maybe the Shalom cast, and perhaps we can start making statements like hummus is actually an Israeli dish and falafels are Israeli and other such absurd things. James, why? What could prompt this sudden change in heart, do you think?
A great mitzvah. Right?
Yes.
A great mitzvah from our friends in the Holy Land.
Yes. Yep.
We can reveal exclusively that we are among the influencers who've been in receipt of some shekels to the value of US 7,000.
Yeah, around approximately. The Israeli government, via their media arm, has been paying various US influencers, which we are not a US influencer, but I think we are the obvious first choice to bring.
We hit North America though. The stats show Canada and Americans are among our listeners, which surprised me.
It did surprise me.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's the anti-Indian nature.
I think it's the commentary on which zoos are the best in Australia that's dragging them in, mate. We've got to keep that going.
100%. But anyway, according to my notes here, around $7,000 they're paying to influencers. It's called the Esther Project. Esther, is that a biblical name, James? Are you familiar with that?
Probably is, yeah. There's a lot of names in the Bible.
Yeah, there are a lot of names in the Bible. Total budget, James, of $900,000. That's not small.
Chump change, I would have said.
It's chump change for them, really. But it does allow you to get a lot of influencers. Now, obviously, the big influencers with millions of followers aren't going to be part of that. But I quite like this kind of, let's call it
big influencers. They're created in a lab by Israel.
Yes, let's be honest.
They're grown in a lab.
There is a theory that you can't make it big in Hollywood or media or the arts or anything, unless you bow to the wishes of Israel and the Illuminati, which is why we have people like Epstein. They exist purely to get that material on you. But yeah, you're right. But I quite like this micro-dosing strategy, let's call it, where they are targeting, it's kind of or rather a shotgun approach, spray and pray, where they're attacking, getting a lot of influencers, small ones, small accounts with maybe 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 followers, and just by sheer numbers, because a lot of the influencers, let's be serious, are quite easily bought. $7,000 to them is a lot of money, and they'll happily say what they want them to say for the promise of a couple of shekels, James.
Yeah, and you might just, I don't know, you just might insinuate one line of propaganda into a podcast, something like, you might say that Israel is a discriminatory apartheid ethno-state, but what about the fact that it's the only one in the Middle East that respects LGBT rights? You might just slip something like that into a podcast and then proceed as normal, as if nothing had ever happened.
You gotta love a good Pepsi Max, don't you, James? I believe, yes, you're right. Israel is very friendly to the LGBTQI,
absolutely,
Z,
yeah,
ABC crowd out there. They're also
that's my quota achieved.
Yes, great.
Easiest 7 Gs I've ever made.
I'd like to so everyone as well, guys. If you're a pedophile, if you enjoy doing illegal things with children, and if you're a sick, twisted fuckhead, Israel is also a safe haven for you there as well. So
great place to visit. Very nice in the summer, around August, this time of year.
I think just recently, someone, a Israeli citizen who was also in the US, managed to escape. He was caught trying
head of their cybersecurity operations.
Yeah, you'd think. Being head of cybersecurity, you'd think he'd have a bit more nous when it comes to covering your tracks, but apparently not. He was fooled by someone who was pretending to be a child.
He was allegedly trying to procure the attentions of a 15-year-old online.
Yeah.
What's interesting is he was nabbed in Las Vegas, which is the state that's basically run by the Adelsons.
By the who, sorry?
Adelsons, the casino magnate Sheldon Adelson.
Yep.
I don't know if you've seen the documentary The Bibi Files.
No, I haven't. No.
It's been doing the rounds. Ian Carroll, shout out to Ian Carroll.
Main man out there. He's certainly
work.
He's someone who has certainly not been bought by Israel.
Not yet. But
not yet. No,
the day is young.
Yeah, but I think he's probably on the hit list.
When Carroll starts shouting out the LGBT inclusiveness of Israel, we'll know that the war is lost.
Yes.
When they get to Carroll, it's all over, baby.
Yes. Yep.
But he's got a great little summary of the Bibi Files, a documentary on Benjamin Netanyahu and some of the corruption allegations that are swirling around him, and the Adelsons, who basically own Las Vegas. They're a big casino owning family. They feature pretty prominently in the documentary, and it's pretty revealing. But it's been alleged that the Adelsons have a lot of sway in that state, which is where the cybersecurity fellow was nabbed, trying to procure the attentions of a 15-year-old for the night, and he was allowed to cruise back to Israel.
That's
as if nothing had happened.
I think you've probably seen the various maps online which show location of sites. I think they purport to show locations of Hamas attacks in Israel, but then it's actually revealed that those locations are locations of known pedophiles in Israel, because I think when you're on the sex offence registry, you have to report where you are and whatnot. I think a while ago, Candace Owens exposed a similar sort of plan by Israel, where they were paying church pastors a significant amount of money in Bitcoin of all things.
That's right. Yeah, I remember this.
To say pro-Israel things in their sermons.
A couple of grand, just reaching out to some friendly Protestant churches to include in their sermons for a Sunday some anti-Candace Owens and some anti-Tucker Carlson sentiment. just for a couple of for the consideration of a couple of $1,000.
Yeah, and actually, I think Candace Owens also, she uncovered this a while ago with certain influencers being doing the same thing. I think these influencers were trying to, man, I hate the word influencer. They have no influence, but anyway, these micro influencers, let's call them, or just let's just call them social people on social media.
Would be
influencers, yeah. Or wannabe influencers, aspirational influencers. You know, they were making posts trying to link Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens together, and Candace says, was like, I've met the guy twice. I've been on his podcast. It's great. You know, we both have the same talking points and we agree on a lot of things. James, I believe you're a church-going man. Is that correct?
Absolutely, never miss it.
Excellent. Good to hear. Good to hear. I think, you know, religion, remembering God, spirituality, being grateful to our Lord and Maker is a very important aspect of life.
Best thing for you.
Best thing for you. Something that sadly is lacking all too much in today's world, and perhaps that may go a long way to explain why we are in the position that we are in. That being said, have you suspected any of your, church elders to be under the influence of the Israeli spell?
Well, absolutely not. I mean, I am a proud member of the Holy Catholic Church,
Excellent.
Which has been basically leading the leagues in terms of anti-Israel pushback.
Yes.
I mean, you got to shout out the legend Cardinal Pizza Baller, who is the leader of the Catholic Church operations in Gaza.
Yep.
Baller by name, baller by nature, who has absolutely been on the front line. So much so that he incurred the wrath of the Israeli military. The IDF took a pot shot at one of his churches. There's about 50,000 Catholics in Gaza. And they almost took up the cross of one of the biggest cathedrals, but they failed to do so. And he responded in kind by holding having a Sunday homily feature one of his priests reading out the name of every child who had been killed in Gaza. It took them 7 hours to do so, but he certainly wasn't backing down. So there's absolutely no doubt about where the Catholic Church stands on this.
Excellent. So why do you think, James, look, somehow we've managed to discuss Israel in some way on every podcast. Guys, that's not actually our intention, James. I'm not a fan of Israel, but it's kind of hard to not talk about them considering the state of the world at the moment.
It's a pretty big issue, isn't it?
It is a big
pretty
issue.
large.
Yeah, exactly. And, we want to get the message out there, and we want, our friends who are watching this, we want them to know this is what's happening. Just a bit of a personal reflection. I remember when I was growing up and, Facebook, and there was no social media. Internet existed, but there was no social media. The media was really controlled by a handful of media conglomerates. Me growing up in a Muslim household, I heard a lot about Israel, but the general consensus that I heard was around a lot of people around me was that, oh, look, the Palestinians and Hamas and stuff, they're a bunch of terrorists and things like that. I didn't really believe it, but that was what was being told. And it's interesting to note that as time has gone by, as social media has become a more important part of our lives, when you've got live feeds from the ground, the tide has turned so much so that, I have blue-eyed, blonde-haired, white people messaging me, telling me how much they hate Israel and how scummy they are, which, 15, 20 years ago, such a thing was unimaginable. It was literally like white people in general would just talk about how Israel are oppressed and attacked by the Palestinians, and the Palestinians are a bunch of terrorists. It's interesting to see how that narrative has shifted over time, and that's basically thanks to social media and removing information reporting out from the hands of, the Murdoch press, effectively.
Yeah, and you see that every time you tune into Sky News, don't you? It's like the land that time forgot.
Yes.
People are still reciting these talking points about Israel essentially being blameless, as if there's not reports filtering out of Gaza about exactly what's going on. And it just seems so incongruous and sad to see people spending so much time repeating the IDF's talking points. I mean, it's just kind of, it's a great shame that conservatives, I mean, whether you're liberal or conservative, should have no bearing, basically, on what your views are on the Israel-Palestine issue, right? I mean, if you have conservative social views, you should be able to independently form a view about who's in the right and who's in the wrong in Israel and Palestine. But for some reason, for all these years before social media, as you say, we had no we had no independent information filtering through in the information space. But now that we do, it's just really weird and sad to see so many conservatives have to put up with this kind of nonsense, right?
Would you call yourself a conservative, James?
I'd say I am. I don't think my political views have changed all that much, but I'd say the left has morphed into something that's completely unrecognizable to me.
I think so. I think growing up, I would have considered myself a centre leftist.
Conservatives weren't cool at all, were they?
No, exactly. But I would have considered myself, centre, leaning slightly towards the left, back when the left was a bit more reasonable. But now it's, they've gone to an extreme, and really you almost have no choice but to lean towards the right. But then it's hard not to get sucked into this pro-Israel narrative that the right pushes.
Well, do you know what the difference is? When we were growing up, right, do you remember George Bush, Janet Jackson at the Super Bowl?
Yep.
The right wing were the ones who were scolding you. They were saying, oh, you can't do this, you can't say this, you can't do this in public, right? Whereas now, since about 2015, 2016, the left has become so preoccupied with gender and equality. They're saying, you can't use these pronouns, you've got to use these words, don't do that, that's that. And they're the ones who are scolding us. Yep. And so I feel like they've really swapped places. From around the time that we were in high school, it was the right-wingers who were really the moralists and the scolds.
Yes.
Whereas now it's the left. And I
Yes.
think we've probably been consistently on the side of people who don't really go in for that sort of moralizing or the censoring of speech or the wagging of fingers. But the two sides have swapped places.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, James. I didn't think of that. Thank you for introducing me to that. I might have to go home and think about that. You just mentioned gender again, and you know what? I hate this whole gender trans thing. I'm kind of bored of it, but it reminds me of another talking point that we that came up this week in regards to Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling. What does the J stand for? Joanna,
I think.
Joanna, yeah. I do want to get your thoughts on that in a second, but before that, I want to go back to this Israel influencer thing, because I think recently, this week, was it last week, the full letter that Charlie Kirk wrote to Netanyahu was revealed. What are your thoughts on that? Because essentially, to me, it seemed like Kirk was essentially asking Netanyahu to be his PR agent.
Well, let's back up for everyone watching at home who hasn't seen this. Basically, the New York Post released a letter that Kirk had sent to Netanyahu. We know that as soon as Kirk was assassinated, Netanyahu he was on the tweets about 30 seconds after the fact, wasn't he? It was really odd.
Exactly. It would have been middle of the night. He knew straight away. It, almost like he knew prior to it happening that he was going to be shot, and he had a pre-scheduled tweet ready to go.
He had his finger on the button in one sense or another, at least. For a man involved in an 8-front war or whatever the fuck he's doing, and a corruption trial, he was certainly very quick on the draw. But it was clear that he was out there. He was very keen to claim Charlie Kirk's legacy, wasn't he? Because Kirk had been, in recent interviews, he had been ostensibly moving away from Israel. He'd been raising questions about whether or not Jeffrey Epstein was working for the Mossad, which I think he probably pretty obviously was, right? I mean most people... I think everyone really knew that as soon as it happened. People who knew him early on as well, they came out and said that. It's fairly obvious, And he was often photographed in his favourite IDF Defence Forces hoodie.
Yes,
so he didn't really hide it, did he, Jeffrey?
He was a very carefully curated, constructed character.
But it was nonetheless pretty significant for someone who was on the evangelical Christian right, as Kirk was, to be raising these questions and to be asking questions about whether or not Israel was basically forcing America's hand in a way that basically damaged America. So he was raising these questions. To you, it might have seemed like pretty mild stuff, Saad. I mean, it might have seemed like stuff that you'd been saying for a decade. But for someone who's a leader of the evangelical Christian right in America, as Charlie Kirk was, it was pretty significant. And I think that explains why Netanyahu was out on the front foot trying to claim Kirk's legacy. And Netanyahu sort of said, well, look, he even wrote me a letter over Easter that shows you how much he was. And the letter came out from the New York Post. I think was leaked it, and an outlet that's been pretty notoriously pro-Israel.
Yeah.
And
it was leaked by the New York Post.
It was leaked to the New York Post.
So Netanyahu didn't actually reveal it himself.
Netanyahu probably leaked it. I would assume Netanyahu leaked it in the New York Post.
Why wouldn't he just openly publish the whole letter himself?
Because that would make him look desperate and needy. Why not just get your friends at the New York Post?
Yes.
Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah.
to do it for you. That's the tried and tested method. And there's been no greater slave to Israel than Rupert Murdoch over the years. I'd say he's probably the most righteous Gentile there is. He's off the Richter scale. I'd say.
Wait. He's a Gentile. I just assumed he was Jewish at
No,
this stage.
I believe he's a Gentile, Saad, but he
Wow.
yeah
He's a good goy.
he absolutely
Yes.
would be in the good boy category.
Yes.
But the letter leaked out. What did you think of it, Saad? It was interesting. He was basically saying, I took it to mean he was hitting him up for a nice, juicy communications contract. He was basically saying...
That's what it was.
He was saying, look, BB, you're losing the PR war, mate.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if there was an organisation like Turning Point that could help you turn this ship around for a nice six-figure fee? That was the subtext that I took from it.
That's exactly what I thought.
I didn't take it to mean that he was particularly pro-Israel as such.
No. It basically read to me like, okay, mate, you are doing a lot of shit that isn't the best for Israel's image. You need to stop doing that and then let me handle your image going forward. See, it would have been a nice fat paycheck, considering that they've budgeted $900,000 to pay influencers $7,000. This would be a multi-million contract.
That's right.
100%. You know,
I thought Kirk was looking out for number one there. I
Yeah.
didn't think he was particularly showing himself to be a rabid Israeli loyalist.
No, exactly. There was a clip that's been recirculating on the internet now from the PBD podcast that was from 2 years ago, just after October 7th happened. And Kirk on that was saying, I remember watching this when it happened, and I just saw it again recently. He was just saying that how he's been to Israel, how the whole country is the size of New Jersey or something. It's very tiny, and it's ridiculous that he said that when he was there are armed guards, military, like everywhere. And he said it's absolutely absurd that after this attack happened, that it took the military 6 hours to respond. That he questioned that 2 years ago. I think that's been scrubbed or really has been diminished online a lot, but it's recently coming back. So it's clear he wasn't really pro-Israel. He was pro-pocketbook, and perhaps, you know, he wants to. It was obvious he wanted to perhaps run for president one day, and running for president in the US requires a lot of money, and who's going to give you a lot of money if not Israel?
Well, I mean, that's a really interesting point that you raised, Sal, the one that's been kind of lost. I mean, in the aftermath of October 7th, I was completely flummoxed as to how Israel could have missed the Hamas attack. I think Hamas had even uploaded to their YouTube channel, if memory serves, footage of them using hang gliders. Like it was on the Hamas YouTube page.
It was Fortnite, mate. They were playing Fortnite in real life. That's what it was. Yeah.
But I mean, if I was one of the many, many members of the IDF looking at this, I would have thought, are we right for a hang glider based attack? Have we modelled this?
Yeah.
But no, I mean, Microsoft this week, they basically stopped doing business with the IDF, didn't they? Because they found that they were using Microsoft's Azure platform to spy
on their own citizens.
Spy on Palestinians' phone calls. And
on their own citizens and Palestinians. I would have assumed that Microsoft knew they were doing that already. Surely they knew, but now they've realized the PR tide is changing, and it's not good for Microsoft's look for people to know that Microsoft software is being used to spy on Palestinians. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, no one would have cared. But I think now it's a PR nightmare for Israel.
As regular listeners to the podcast know, I once had a girlfriend who was Jewish at university, which is my get out of anti-Semitism.
Was she just James? You're an attractive man.
No. Let me get to the point.
Sorry,
here.
mate, sorry.
We'll skim over it. We'll skim over the details.
Yeah.
But she once had visiting her in Canberra some friends, some cousins of hers from the Holy Land who were doing their compulsory service in the IDF.
Yep.
And they relayed to me stories over dinner. I was quite shocked about the nature of the surveillance that they undertook in Palestine. And they were saying, well, if it's kind of a slow Friday night, we'll zoom in and we'll have a look at one of their weddings. If they're having a wedding and we'll just mock the bride's dress, and we'll zoom in and we'll use our surveillance camera to laugh at the food that they're having and how shit their weddings are. And I thought, this is incredible. The amount, like the degree of surveillance. Wow. And this was like 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So if you've got that going on, how the fuck do you miss a large-scale attack of the nature that you've had? And how do you even fail to respond to it, right?
Yeah, I'm convinced, that no doubt in my mind whatsoever, that Israel knew of the attack and allowed it to happen so that they could do what they're doing right now. I think the latest negotiation deal, which Trump is trying to negotiate there and Hamas have agreed to, it will return all the hostages. I'm not 100% a fan of the terms. I haven't looked into it too deeply, but one of them does require Hamas and Palestinians to completely disarm, which seems like a trap. If you say, yep, we'll allow you to exist as a country, but you have no means of defending yourself from anyone else, is that really a country? Are those terms really fair?
Can you see Hamas really agreeing to that? I mean, I know they notionally have, but can you see them agreeing to that?
It's a tough one. I think they have. They publicly have. But the interesting thing is, ever since that agreement, Netanyahu has continued to attack Gaza. There have been several more skirmishes, several more bombing campaigns, killing lots more people. So it seems like they don't want to agree to it because they want to take that prime beachfront property for themselves and develop a tourist's paradise for visiting American Jews.
See, Tony Blair's in the mix. He's overseeing the whole thing.
Yeah, so Tony Blair, like responsible, one of the architects behind the war in Iraq, killing of well over 1 million Iraqis under false pretenses, and he wants to take over, be the leader of this whole project.
Get a slice of the action, Tones. Nice one, big fella.
Exactly.
Hook into it.
Exactly. Anyway, James, I think that's enough Israel talk for today. We'll try not to discuss it again. It's kind of hard not to. I want to come back to J.K. Rowling. James, are you a fan of the Harry Potter series of books?
I'm a huge fan, mate.
Me
huge
too.
fan.
Me too. I love them.
Yeah.
I've been to Harry Potter World in the UK. Fantastic place. Loved it. I had the butterbeer there.
What's it like?
I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but it tasted magical.
Really?
Like, it was insane.
Did you have the way to make it in front of you in that really fancy sort of way?
No, it just got you purchased it and it came in a jug in a glass and you drank it. I don't know. It was kind of like, I don't know what it was. It was kind of like creaming soda with something else added.
Yeah.
It was incredible. But it was.
Did it taste buttery?
It tasted creamy, buttery, rich.
Yeah.
It was incredible. This was 8-9 years ago I went, so my memory might be failing me, but it was fantastic. Me and my wife were both blown away at how good it tasted. But in addition to that, seeing the sets, the costumes was amazing. My only criticism of the movies, I suppose, is that I wasn't a fan of how they treated Ron in the movies. I think in the books, Ron was portrayed as a much more intelligent, sharper, cleverer person, whereas he basically became the comic relief in the movies, and Hermione became just way smarter than she needed to be. She was the
Justice
strong
for
female character.
Rangers.
Yes, justice for Rangers, exactly. Ron, I wasn't a fan of how they treated him, and I wasn't a fan of how they skipped a few backstory elements and things like that in the movies. That being said, it's a movie. The movies were long enough as is. They had to split up the last movie into 2 parts, so I get it. Things have to be cut for Hollywood. So which is why I'm really looking forward to the upcoming HBO series, which hopefully is coming out towards the end of next year, which will hopefully allow the makers to go into more detail, go into more of the lore behind it. And I would actually love if they did a series on the origins of Voldemort. I actually think that Voldemort was... he had a point. Because if you think about it, if you read the other books afterwards and the other movies, in the Harry Potter universe, wizard and witch kind were discriminated against. Mm-hmm. Similar to how, mutants in the X-Men series, right? And Voldemort's whole...
Or the turtles, in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I mean, were they discriminated against?
Well, they had to flee to the suicide, didn't they?
Well, no. I mean, I think they grew up in the sewers. That was a happy coincidence, but they couldn't ever really expose themselves.
Why did Splinter take to the suicide? Because he was shunned by society. He could never be accepted.
No, Splinter was turned into a rat and then had to go to the sewers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
because he was a mutant.
Yeah, exactly.
They were mutants.
Exactly. So you were shunned by societies. You're an outcast. So you had to go live in the sewers. Now, in the Harry Potter universe, that was a similar sort of thing. I think if you watch the movies which had Johnny Depp in them, the Crimes of Grindelwald, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, that series that's set in the 1920s and talks a lot about the First War, the witch and the war against the Muggles and whatnot, the Muggles and the magic kind, and how really the people who could do magic were heavily discriminated against, which is why they had to hide in plain sight. Why does platform 9 3/4 exist, James? And why can no one else see it? It's hidden. Why couldn't they just use a standard train to go to Hogwarts? It has to be hidden because magic kind are discriminated against. And
Or,
Voldemort's whole
couldn't it be that muggles would just flip the fuck out? Muggles couldn't handle that shit.
yeah, exactly.
Society would grind to a halt.
That is discrimination, though. But you'd assume that Muggles and non-Muggles have lived together since the beginning of humankind in the Harry Potter universe. So surely there would be some sort of understanding there. Are you familiar with the TV cartoon, James, The Last Airbender?
Haven't seen it, mate.
Another similar sort of premise there. There are people in that universe who have, let's call it magic powers. They can bend elements, and there are non-benders. And some of the
Benders?
people, they can manipulate earth, fire, water, air.
Bender has a certain connotation, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But I like it
It's
because
a synonym for baddie man, isn't
yes,
it?
it is. Yeah, or a batty boy. But in the Last Airbender, there are people who have these abilities that they can, manipulate fire or earth or water or air, depending on what your element is. And we'll call it magic for all purposes, but it's more based on martial arts. And there was a rift. One of the themes was the rift between benders and non-benders. So Voldemort, really, I think his main his existence, his main reason for being was that he wanted to protect witches and wizards from muggles and from discrimination. And he perhaps took it a bit out of hand, similar to how Magneto and X-Men, really, that's I think he took it too far.
I think it's the nature of evil, right? The problem of evil is this big question that bedevils religion everywhere and believers everywhere. Why does evil exist? You can't have the darkness without the light, can you?
Exactly. The yin and the yang.
Harry's got the scar on him. He's got a bit of that in him. He couldn't exist without Voldemort, right? I mean, you've got they have a symbiotic, codependent relationship, don't they?
Yep. I'd love to discuss Harry Potter, but we could. We're not a Harry Potter podcast. We are,
not yet.
Not yet. Maybe one day.
Stay tuned for the
upcoming Harry Potter episode. Yes. Yeah. As I mentioned, Hermione. Now Hermione was played by an actress known as Emma Watson. She was the daughter of two lawyers, I believe. Very wealthy, kind of person who would go holidaying in the south of France during summer. Went to theatre school. Was a theatre kid. Very wealthy. Grew up very comfortably.
And let's be honest, hot as fuck.
James, I think you're talking about an 11-year-old girl. Is that correct?
No, I mean, the series went on beyond.
Yeah, okay, yes. That's right. Yeah, now, no, look, okay, it's interesting you say that.
Talking about the latter movies here,
100%, 100%.
Yeah. But
and actually, to be fair, at the time, we were that age. It was okay.
Yeah.
I would have to say her attractiveness has diminished somewhat in the last couple of years.
It's dropped off a cliff.
Yeah. She was in a few movies after the Harry Potter series. I think she was in Beauty and the Beast. I refused to watch that just because it looked awful. I was a big fan of the original Disney movie. I didn't watch Did you watch the live action Beauty and the Beast, James?
Never did.
You haven't seen it with your kids or anything?
No.
Yeah.
Should I?
I probably not.
Give it a miss.
Yeah, I don't think my girls have seen it either. It just looked awful. I think Emma Watson had some misgivings about the character of Belle, and she wanted her to be an inventor and all this stuff. Whereas in the original movie, her father was an inventor, and she was basically a bookworm, which is great. She used to love going to the library, but they wanted to make her. It just became unrealistic. It was unrealistic. Anyway, I didn't see the movie. Whatever. And has she been in anything else of
She's
note?
retired, I think, man. She's quit movies.
Now, has she retired? Did she deliberately choose that, or was that forced upon her?
I believe she's gone to activism full time.
Okay. Excellent.
Which is interesting because she kind of played an annoying bitch in the movies, right? And she's sort of taken that off. There's this real question about whether actors shape their characters or whether the characters shape them. She has taken being an annoying bitch full time.
Yeah.
She's taken it off screen and made it a full time
James,
identity.
would you believe I had not considered that? Now that you mention it, you're right. Hermione was that annoying know-it-all in class. Even all the professors, she put her hand up and the professor would be like, "Is there anyone but Miss Granger who can answer this?"
The goody two-shoes who just took it too far.
Yeah.
Who you wish would shut the fuck up.
The kind of kid who in class you would call a baguette. Really?
Maybe.
Really, that kind of person. Anyway, she was great. Whatever. The movies are great. Loved her. But then she took to full-time activism. And her and Daniel Radcliffe, he's a bit of a douche as well. That being said, he has been in some fantastic movies. These really random movies. I think Daniel Radcliffe, he made so much money from Harry Potter.
The kid can act.
The kid can act. And he chose to pursue the non-conventional acting path, thinking, look, I've done all these movies. And I think he didn't want to be typecast into that kid who played Harry Potter. So he started being in all these weird movies. There was this one movie that I saw where he woke up one day with guns taped to his... He woke up and he basically had guns that were duct taped to his hand. Turned out he was an unwilling participant in a reality TV show where drones follow you around and people would try and kill him, and he had to not be killed.
And he got naked with a horse once, didn't he? There was some play, I think he
something
was
weird like that. Yeah. I didn't see that.
He nuded up with a horse.
That's very strange. But anyway, so respect for that. But it seems like Emma Watson and Daniel Radcliffe, but let's focus on Emma Watson for now. They made it their personal mission to chastise J.K. Rowling on her views regarding the trans movement. Now, J.K. Rowling is a card-carrying feminist. You know, she believes in women's rights, and she believes that trans women encroach upon the rights of women. Okay, and
of real women.
Yeah, let's say what it is. Now, a few years ago when she was saying that, and really what she was saying on Twitter and whatnot was hardly outrageous. It was entirely normal. There was literally nothing out of the ordinary being said there. But she just, people started giving her death threats, rape threats, back when all this was happening. And then Emma Watson added to that by also distancing herself from her and calling her out on this and effectively abusing her for all that. It was the trendy thing to do at the time. It seems kind of ungrateful to me, because the woman who basically wrote the book that got you your first proper acting job, which turned you into a multi-millionaire as a teenager, you'd think you'd owe them some sort of gratitude. So maybe if you don't agree with them, that's fine. There's no need to publicly hang them out to dry, which is what Emma Watson did. Now, recently she was on a podcast with Jay Shetty. Jay Shetty is a comedian, I believe. He's an Indian American comedian. And she made a few remarks about that, almost trying to patch the relationship up with old J.K. Rowling. And in response, J.K. Rowling, she did a 700-word tweet that absolutely destroyed her. I'm going to read a few key quotes that I've got here. Adults can't expect to cozy up to an activist movement, then assert their right to the former friend's love. I have the same right, and I've finally decided to exercise it. Burn. This quote particularly regarding Emma Watson, this really, I think, was quite powerful. I'm going to read this one out to you. It's quite a long one, James. Do you mind if I read it?
Please.
Like other people who've never experienced adult life uncushioned by wealth and fame, Emma has so little experience of real life, she's ignorant of how ignorant she is. She'll never need a homeless shelter. She's never going to be placed on a mixed-sex public hospital ward. I'd be astounded if she's been in a high street changing room since childhood. Her public bathroom is single occupancy and comes with a security man standing guard outside the door. Has she had to strip off in a newly mixed-sex changing room at a council-run swimming pool? Is she ever likely to need a state-run rape crisis centre that refuses to guarantee an all-female service? To find herself sharing a prison cell with a male rapist who's identified into the women's prison? The greatest irony here is that had Emma not decided in her most recent interview to declare that she loves and treasures me, a change of tack I suspect she's adopted because she's noticed full-throated condemnation of me is no longer quite as fashionable as it was, I might never have been this honest. So, J.K. Rowling, Joanne, she is hurt and offended by this. She perhaps feels that Emma owes her some sort of gratitude. But I think the point here is that J.K. Rowling is saying that it's too late now for Emma to try and make amends. Her career as an actress has failed. It's fallen flat. She's not getting any jobs. That's why she's a full-time activist now. I don't know if that's true or not. We can look that up. But really, she's not getting any jobs. She doesn't need to work, but she wants to remain relevant somehow. And we find this happens a lot. You'll see random people start appearing on podcasts out of nowhere when they're trying to relaunch their careers. You see this happening a lot. But James, any comments?
I think setting aside the fact that Rowling made this woman into the sort of multi-millionaire, he can afford to just say, I'm quitting acting and I'm going to be an activist. What is being an activist full time? Like, what the fuck has she done for humanity, to be honest?
Yeah, really.
Show me the receipts of things you've done of any consequence over the last 6 years that you haven't been in movies. But look, I think there's two kinds of people, Saad. Setting aside the fact that Rowling gave her this opportunity to become this multi-millionaire, they're also just friends.
Yes.
And there's two kinds of people in the world. There are those who go, okay, hang on. One of my friends has said something that's offensive or gotten into trouble. Will I jump on the bandwagon and criticize them? Or will I do what's right by my friend? And there are people who will go, no, hang on. They're my friend first and foremost.
Yes.
And there are people who go, well, hang on. Ultimately, what they are most of all is someone who reflects on me. And they look at people as reflections on them and what they can do for their own image. And the kind of people who go in for this sort of hard left nonsense, they invariably fall into the latter category.
Yes.
They look at people and they go, well, they're just a reflection on me. They don't have any inherent value in terms of a friend, let alone the person who made me who I am today, but for whom I would be nothing. And they have no sense of gratitude. And you so often find that this kind of militant political activism, this extremism, goes along with that latter sort of view of humanity. And that's why these people, they're not humans at all. They're narcissists. They're looking at people through the lens of what they can do for them and how they reflect upon them. And they're just to be disregarded entirely, I think. They're not worth listening to.
Very, very good points there, James. Raises the interesting question, though. How long is gratitude owed for? So in this situation, you mentioned that really J.K. Rowling is the one who made Emma Watson who she is. Ultimately, J.K. Rowling is a creator of a product, and Emma Watson is an actress. How long until that debt is repaid, or can it ever be repaid? It's been, how long has it been? When was the last Harry Potter movie released?
Long time, right? 10 years, right?
Well, more than that.
More than that?
Yeah, I think maybe it was 2010, 12 maybe, something like that, whatever. More than 10 years. It's been more than 10 years. She's done nothing of note since then. How long can you expect an actor to kind of remain loyal to the creator? I think in her tweet, let me just skim this, she did touch on that. Here you go. J.K. Rowling said, "I'm not owed eternal agreement from any actor who once played a character I created." So she herself agrees that. She herself believes that she's not owed anything from these actors. But then she's exercising her right to also burn them publicly, because if they're going to treat her with contempt and disrespect, she can do the same.
I don't think it's a question of owing them something or owing a debt of gratitude. Like, you and I are friends. If you came out and said something that was abominable politically, let's say you did something really racist, or you had a brain snap, or you were whatever, you had an acquired...
Something I would never do, of course.
Yeah, had an acquired brain injury.
Yeah.
And someone said, what do you think about Saad? There is no circumstance under which I would go in to condemn you, right?
Thank you, James.
That's a basic obligation. Like, I
Yes.
wouldn't, that's not, you don't get a pat in the back for saying that. That is what I would consider a baseline obligation of being mates with someone, right?
Yes.
Let alone the fact that she's made this person in terms of the financial obligations. So I don't think there is that debt of obligation per se, but she's gone out of her way to criticize Rowling. She's driven off the track and looked for opportunities to burnish her own image by criticizing Rowling. The only one who's played this correctly is Draco Malfoy, right?
Yeah, he's like,
Every time they ask him,
he's probably going to be in the new series to play, what's Draco Malfoy's father's name? Lucius Malfoy.
Every time they ask him, he does these ones. He just does the correct thing. He leaves it.
Yeah.
He leaves it, lets it through to the keeper. That's the only way to play it,
100%,
right?
yeah. No comment. Because I think in this podcast as well, Emma did mention that she gave J.K. Rowling a handwritten note saying, "I'm so sorry for what you're going through."
What a tosser.
You have her phone number, her email address, like that. What is that? Like,
What a tosser.
Yeah, how about you publicly say that. You know, you don't pour. J.K. Rowling, she said that when she was at her
Probably
most
written on the
vulnerable.
stationery of some boutique 5-star hotel near the United Nations where she was participating in some bullshit forum.
Exactly. So she basically poured petrol onto the flames. And now, look, we're seeing this whole trans movement ideology. It's changing. It's no longer as fashionable to say that you can have a penis and be a woman. You know, that is changing. Thankfully, a bit more. These conservative values are coming back. And as J.K. Rowling said, it's no longer fashionable. Therefore, she suspects that's why she's saying this and is trying to extend an olive branch. And J.K. Rowling is not interested. And good on her. I say.
Yeah.
I think loyalty matters. You know, I'm
Too late, mate. Piss off.
I'm going through something not similar, but I'm going through something at the moment as well where loyalties are being tested. And I like to think of myself as a loyal person. So I've got a very close person I'm very close with. He's going through some things, and I'm sticking by him and backing him regardless, because that's what friends do. You back them.
And Rowling's right. I mean, I used to think about this. I used to have, before I sort of re-engaged with Christianity a few years ago, I had a fairly libertarian view of these things. I sort of thought, well, you know, if someone wants to be a trans or whatever, I don't really care. What's it to me? It doesn't mean anything to me. Why would you get so agitated or angry about someone claiming to be a woman? I mean, I don't personally care. It's of very little cost. But the example of J.K. Rowling really focused my mind on this, because she is, as she says in the tweet, she's a legitimate feminist hero. I mean, she was a single mother. Absolutely on the margins economically.
Wrote the books in poverty, basically.
She used to go to cafes where the heating was on.
Yep.
So she would order one drink and then spend the whole day in there writing her manuscripts because it was so cold in Scotland. That's a legitimate feminist hero right there.
Yep.
Writing one of the best-selling book of all time, or one of the best-selling books of all time.
Yeah, has to be. Yeah, must be.
And then you have these people, some of whom have hairy legs through their stockings and beards on their faces, lecturing her about what it means to be a woman.
Yeah.
How absurd is that?
It is. Yeah.
When you look at that state of affairs, I realized, hang on a second, there's something not quite right here. And her example really helped focus my mind. But especially the example of Emma Watson, who's had everything in life handed to her, she can make these statements without any consequence. She can say anything she likes to get likes on Instagram, or invited to panels at Turtle Bay to speak about things that really are just airy-fairy sentiments. But Rowling's actually lived it.
Yeah.
And to have these people lecturing her is absurd.
James, I can't top. I have nothing else to add. That was fantastic. I have nothing else to say regarding that. Anything else that you want to say there?
No.
Speaking of Twitter, did you see the video where this bloke, was it in Ireland or England? England, I think. He was had the police show up to his house in the middle of the night, which in itself is kind of like the process is the punishment. Because why would for such a situation, why would the police need to come?
Tell us what he did, Saad.
Anyway, let's start. Yeah, start again. Sorry, guys, I'm getting a bit distracted. He posted a tweet saying, along the lines of "fuck Hamas, fuck Palestine, fuck Islam." Do I agree with the sentiment of that tweet? Of course not. It's an uninformed, uneducated opinion. But should he be allowed to say it? Fuck yes. You should be allowed to say whatever you want under free speech. Now, basically, the police rocked up to his house in the middle of the night whilst he was in his pajamas. And the video is fantastic, guys. You really should watch it, because I must applaud the police officer. It was clear he did not want to be there and did not want to arrest this man for a tweet.
People are even conjecturing online that the police officer didn't even know what Hamas was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're right.
He didn't seem to have any idea.
He had no idea. And he says, look, I've been asked to come down here and take you, gather your things and this and that. And he's like, well, you're arresting me now in the middle of the night. I'm in my pajamas. And he goes, sorry, mate, but you know, I've been told to do this. And he said, is this what you signed up for? I'm sure there's 50 other things you'd rather be doing. And he basically nodded his head and goes, yeah. But unfortunately, that is the way of the world, or the way of England right now, the UK right now, and I'm worried it's going to spread somewhere else. It's
shocking, isn't it? Because we are up to now 30 arrests a day in the United Kingdom for people posting offensive things on social media.
I've got the note here. He was charged under Section 19 of the Public Order Act, stirring up racial hatred. Now, is it hate speech? Maybe, but the angle here is kind of like, what's the line between hate speech and free speech? And can you arrest someone for that, for this alleged of alleged.
It's a really good point. What is the standard? And this is the crux of the
What is the
issue, right,
standard?
Start?
Yep.
Because the standard is someone has to take offense to your tweet.
Yep.
And that seems to be it. Because the number of people who actually get convicted, 30 a day are being arrested.
Yeah.
The number of getting convicted is vanishingly small, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so it seems to me that you establish a standard whereby I just have to take offense.
Yes.
And people these days, aren't they fucking snowflakes? I can take offense at anything, right?
100%. People have taken a lot of offense to us on TikTok for what we have been saying, which really we haven't been setting out to offend anyone. We're just expressing our own opinions, yet somehow people are being offended.
And people they are spring-loaded to take offense. They are even, you could argue, incentivized to take offense.
Yes.
Because if you can post on social media that you've been wounded, that you've been singled out, that you've been discriminated against, people will come forth and they will say, oh, darling, I'm so sorry, like.
Yes.
So we are even incentivizing people to take
100%.
offense. The mildest things that 20, 30 years ago would have been jokes broadcast on sketch comedy shows on mainstream TV, now one person tweeting them can lead to someone taking offense. What a horseshit standard.
Do you think, a few weeks ago, James, we were talking about the Narcissism Olympics, how basically it's this competition to be the most empathetic. Do you think it's related to that? Because by pretending to be offended by something, what you're really doing is trying to show how empathetic you are to whatever cause is the flavor of the month.
I think there's two people. There's the people who will readily show that they are sympathetic to whatever happens. And there are people who are looking for attention. So they're both narcissists in a sense, because one is going, please give me attention. I've been offended by this thing.
Yep.
And then there's a ready supply of audience members who are willing to go, look how enlightened and open-minded I am. I'm sympathetic to the fact that you have been offended. And these two people, these two different kinds of narcissists, they're playing different roles, but they're in this symbiotic relationship. They're wrecking it for the rest of us, aren't they?
The other point here is should insulting a religion be a crime? In most parts of the world, or most Western countries, if you insult Islam or Judaism, you're not going to have a good time of it, are you? Yet you're quite freely able to mock Christianity, the Bible, and Jesus.
Yep.
Ironically, if you went to any Muslim country in the world and mocked Jesus, mate, you're going to jail. And I find that standard appalling. That why is it in countries that are built upon the Christianity as the state religion, even if it's symbolic, why does freedom of speech allow you to insult some religions and not others? This guy said fuck Islam. I don't agree with him, but he should be allowed to express that. I suspect if he had a similar sentiment against Christianity, this would not.
He could have said whatever he liked.
He could have
posted the most obscene, pornographic, blasphemous shit about Jesus he wanted, and he would have gotten away with it without question. And the idea is that because Christians are powerful, and this new ideology that pervades these days is that anyone that's powerful can never be in the right because they have power, and power is in the wrong hands, and the whole system must be deconstructed. But it's total horseshit. How much power do you have when you can be maligned and abused in the public sphere without the apparatus of state doing a single thing? Who are the ones who really have power? The whole basis of this idea is completely bankrupt, and it's complete crap. Saad, you're completely right about what you say, and I think the Premier of South Australia, Peter Malinauskas, made this point recently, about a month ago, on a podcast.
Okay.
He said exactly the same thing. The left is all over abuses of power and the giving of offence. They're completely up to police that sort of thing, except when it comes to Christianity.
Yes.
So they let every single one of those go through to the keeper.
Yep.
And they've got to ask themselves why. And there's no basis for it. It's completely bankrupt.
For another spin on this, should you be allowed to insult religion under free speech? I think, yes, you should. But why would you want to? That's what I don't get. What kind of person wants to go out there and start mocking people's beliefs? How does that lead to a better society or a better outcome? Let people, religion is largely a private affair. Let people have their own beliefs. let's be honest, most people who are religious aren't hurting others. Sometimes some crimes are committed in the name of religion, which is awful, but really those crimes are driven more by political factors than religious, and they use religion as an excuse. And then we can even go into there that who are the power brokers behind the scenes encouraging these people to commit these crimes using religion as the excuse, because it becomes it's an easy way to brainwash certain people. James, I think your life has improved immeasurably since embracing Christianity, has it not?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, religion is a cheat code for leading a happy and productive life.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen the speculation about the UFC, Saad. People question why Khabib and all these fighters from, was it Dagestan?
Yeah.
They say, what's going on? Why is it that they're so good?
Yeah.
And one of the conspiracy theories runs that they're so out of the way that the drug testers can't get to them
Yeah.
within time, so they can run these
Yeah.
doping cycles in secret. Maybe it's the cold weather that
Yeah.
puts them. It's obviously religion.
100%. Joe Rogan said that himself. He talks about Khabib because all he does is he trains, prays, and he loves God, loves his family, loves his mum, and to him, the most important thing is religion, and that guides everything in his life. Is it for everyone? Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one, actually. I think
It's clear that it makes you fucking dangerous and
does,
fucking
yeah.
hard to kill
Yes.
and fucking good at life.
Exactly.
And if you look at the vast sweep of human history, right?
Yep.
All the greatest minds, Isaac Newton,
Yep.
Whoever you want to name, they all believed that God was not only real, but he was real and present. His breath was upon our breath,
Yep.
and we could learn a lot about God from the universe. We could look for the signs of God.
Yep.
And then in the last 50 or 60 years, we've suddenly gone, a certain subset of people have gotten the confidence to go, well, that's obviously nonsense. I'm much smarter than Isaac Newton.
Yeah, I mean-
completely mock anyone who has views of this nature. Where do they get the confidence to even hold and express such views, right? I mean, the only defensible position you can have is uncertainty.
Yes.
The people who sally forth into debate with certainty, looking to mock those who hold these views.
Yes.
There's nothing to hang your hat on there philosophically or logically, right?
Where do you? I don't want to go down this path too much. Perhaps this is something we can talk about in the future. But where did this whole atheist movement really begin, whereby atheism in itself became its own religion? When did this really start, James? Are you familiar with that?
I think you have to date it to social media and Reddit, and basically, the stereotype of the big fat guy with a neck beard, feeling morally superior, looking for brownie points on Reddit. That's what I date it to.
Yeah, I mean, this might be something I might want to read more into this, but I find it interesting because I find it hard to believe that that people can truly believe that there is nothing out there. I think as humans we have this innate sense of a belief in a higher being or purpose. Call it what you want. There's lots of different names for it. But to just be convinced 100% that we are nothing but carbon atoms mixed with some hydrogen, and we exist on Earth, and consciousness is simply just our brain firing, and we die, and there's nothing else. I find it really hard to believe that anyone could really, truly, with 100% conviction, believe that.
At the very least, you have to allow for the very distinct possibility that our hardware is not capable of conceiving and understanding what's really going on. You can't be intellectually honest without allowing for that being a very
100%.
significant possibility.
Exactly.
And that has to temper or moderate anything you say about people with religious convictions or spiritual beliefs or a religious worldview.
Yep.
But somehow these people, they're so dead inside, I guess. It's probably...
They're morally bankrupt, really.
It correlates pretty strongly, I would say, with never leaving the house.
Yep.
And getting a lot of your... spending a lot of your day in front of a computer screen. I'd say you have to be deadened to that point, to the possibility of there being a spiritual dimension to life. That's the only kind of person who feels confident enough to abuse people with a religious worldview.
James, do you think this is something we should talk about more in the future? This is piqued an interest.
We should open this up.
I think we should open this up in the future. Definitely,
yeah.
It might be when there's a slow week. This is something that we can talk about.
Delve back into.
Maybe we can get someone on. Get one of your.
Let's get an atheist on.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because look, I'm not well versed in this at all.
Let's do a cage match with an atheist.
I think that most people who do compete in professional fighting are religious. Outside of
Oh,
the
absolutely they
Dagestanis,
are,
you
yeah.
know, they all thank God in the end and
Yeah,
everything. So
absolutely.
come on, you know.
Even the American guys,
Yeah, they all are,
It's
exactly.
obviously a huge advantage. It's
Yes,
a huge
I think
advantage to
so.
life. Yeah.
And I think that, you know, the ritual aspect of religion, I think, can really help with giving structure to your day and helping you achieve things. I think there is definitely value to ritual and just and practice there. You know, some people meditate, some people, you know, they have their morning rituals. But really, religion has all that baked into it.
And what's interesting is what's replaced religion has many of the hallmarks of religion.
That's a very good
I mean,
point.
if you look at it,
Yeah.
the idea that, you know, say the prevailing views on gender, on political correctness, they remind me of sort of like obscure Judaism or Hinduism,
Yeah.
stuff that was maybe part of those two religious philosophies but has fallen out of favor. If I just say the right combination of words, if I use the right pronouns, then the magical state of equality will descend upon us all. And the idea is that you just regulate your behavior, you follow certain rituals, you use the right words. It's smacks of religion. People have basically tried to replace religion with something that has all the hallmarks of religion, but none of the spiritual solace. You know, it's very ironic to my perspective.
I think the buzzword is manifesting. Or you have to think about something, you manifest and think about it, and the universe will give it to you. I'm like, come on, mate, that's basically just prayer.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what it is.
That's right.
Yeah. Let's touch on this in the future. James, now we have amassed a bit of a following on TikTok.
Shout out.
Shout out, you know, largely from India, but North America as well, I think you mentioned.
Shout out to the brothers in Hyderabad.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to everyone
We
there.
love you.
Interesting development, though, last week. This has been on the cards for some time. American ownership of TikTok is about to change. Now, I believe TikTok was owned by a Chinese company called ByteDance. They were responsible for all the algorithm. And, you know, there is some hearsay that suggests that what the algorithm suggests to kids in China is different to what it suggests to kids in America. So in China, they'll be showing kids videos about engineering and robotics and science and maths and things like that. Whereas the algorithm in America is showing them dance videos and others, just brain rot, basically. Now, more than 50% of US ownership of TikTok has changed. A consortium of investors have purchased it. One of them is, I think, Oracle.
Larry Ellison.
Larry Ellison, yeah.
Yep.
Prominent Zionist, founder of Oracle.
Larry Ellison, who personally vetted the Secretary of State Marco Rubio for his position on Israel. He was feeding information back, according to leaked emails, back to Israel's ambassador to the UN after a private dinner with Rubio, where he questioned him about his stance on Israeli-Palestinian issues before Trump nominated him as Secretary of State.
Okay. So Oracle Silver Lake is an investment company. I think Michael Dell, is it Michael Dell his name? The founder of Dell, prominent Zionist, heavily involved in that. ByteDance will keep less than 20%. The algorithm is going to be licensed to a US joint venture firm. The other major stakeholder or shareholder here is an Abu Dhabi-based company called MGX. Now, I find that one quite interesting because the UAE, which Abu Dhabi is the capital of, I believe, recently normalized relations with Israel. So you basically have the new owners of TikTok in the US anyway are a bunch of billionaire Zionists and some Arab billionaires. So what does this mean for TikTok in the US? Now, from my understanding, this was really brought about by the spreading of pro-Palestine, anti-Israel content on TikTok. Especially amongst Gen Z now, I think the vast majority of Gen Z are pro-Palestine because they're seeing the images and videos on TikTok of
Because
the
they're
massacre.
functioning brains.
They're functioning brains, and they're seeing in real time the massacre that Israel is committing live. So this is not in the best interests of Israel. Bad PR for them. Goes back to what we talked about Charlie Kirk earlier and them paying influencers. But it seems like rather than paying influencers $7,000, just buy the company that controls it, and then you can tweak the algorithm to your own liking. What are your thoughts there, James?
Well, that's exactly what Netanyahu said after his speech before the UN last month. He said, the fight, really. It's not really about what's happening on the battlefield. It's about public opinion. And the single most important factor in that is TikTok. That's
Yep.
exactly what he said. And look what's happening. It's a big question for us, Saad. I mean,
Yep.
thank God it wasn't the Indian government that bought it. We'd be officially out of business.
We
but
would.
It's probably the next worst thing for
Yeah.
us, I'd say. We have to probably get our applications into Centrelink tomorrow.
I suspect that were we to land in Britain tomorrow for a talk, which we may be giving sometime in the future, if we're lucky enough, we perhaps would be unlucky enough to be arrested at Heathrow Airport for our views based on the UK social media laws. I'm worried that these things will come into Australia. Interesting, an emoji has been banned on TikTok in the US. It's still valid. It still works in Australia. I tested it earlier. You want to enlighten us, James, about that?
It is a juice box emoji.
Juice box
You remember
emoji.
Poppers, the old juice box?
Yep.
Why is that so? What does the juice box
Well,
signify?
I think the word juice,
Juice.
it can mean something else. We can talk about was the juice responsible for 9/11?
Ooh.
Yeah.
You're talking about O.J. Simpson there, right?
No, I'm
Referring to
not
the-
talking about. But if you say juice, if you spell it a different way, what comes up?
I don't know, so
we'll leave that to our viewers to work out. But we can perhaps say, a juice box emoji can be used instead of a certain word to refer to a certain group of people who perhaps inhabit the land currently known as Israel.
but no longer can it be used, except in
No
Australia.
longer. It can be used in Australia, but in
Okay.
America, it cannot be used. And again, this is because of the pro-Palestine content coming out, and pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, not anti-Semitic, because anti-Israel and being anti-Semitic is not the same thing, but the anti-Israel content being pushed on TikTok thanks to the algorithm. Now, I'm worried. I think Rupert Murdoch is also heavily invested or interested in investing in this as well, isn't he? And as you mentioned earlier, he's a top boy. What does this mean for TikTok in the US and algorithm changes? My concern here as well is that if the algorithm is being controlled by a US company, TikTok is also used by political candidates. So next election, how will the algorithm favor certain candidates over others? We know that Facebook were pushing the Democrats over the Republicans last election. Zuckerberg came out and basically admitted this. This was a thing. They got requests from the FBI. Do you remember that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But TikTok was the exception, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, both Trump and Nigel Farage were heavily favoured by TikTok in recent elections in the UK and the US. Trump credited TikTok with getting him elected.
I think his appearance on Joe Rogan probably was the one that sealed the deal.
That certainly helped. But
yeah.
if you look at the stats, probably young adults in the US spend as much time on TikTok as they do Instagram and YouTube combined. They spend more time on TikTok. I think it means game over in one sense or another side, because certainly Israel, Palestine, you just have to use the app a little bit. You see those issues, content about that stuff, the disgraceful conduct of Israel, the disgraceful, illegal, immoral genocide that it's perpetrating in Gaza was floating to the top of the algorithm.
Yes.
It was very, very prominent there relative to other social media outlets. The question is whether or not that was organic or, as Israel's defenders claim, whether the Chinese government was pushing this to sow social division. I suspect it was organic because young people really care about this issue.
Yep.
They have eyes, they have brains, they can see what's going on, they have a moral sense that tells them it's disgusting.
Yep.
But I think this will be game over in one sense or another side. It will either be game over for TikTok as an app, because I think if they suppress this issue, which is by far and away the number one issue of concern
100%.
for most people under the age of 30 in Australia, in the US, then they're going to suffer. It's going to lose its place of preeminence. They'll go elsewhere, right?
Do you think that such a thing could happen in Australia? And let's assume that China was manipulating the algorithm to show more pro-Palestine it's not really pro-power stuff. It's just pro not killing people stuff. But anyway,
I think they probably were. I mean, because if America owned the algorithm for Chinese social media, they would promote divisive social issues. That's what you do. You get an advantage over your enemy. I mean, some of the stuff that TikTok was promoting previously included a lot of stuff that was anti the royal family. You know, divisive social issues, right? They were getting a big bump on TikTok. And that's exactly what we would do if we controlled Chinese social media.
Yeah, it makes sense.
We would eat away. That's how it works in international relations. You get an advantage over your enemy. You try and sow division. You know, I mean, we'd be no different.
We would do the same.
Exactly.
We would do the same. So look, I suppose in that sense, it's probably it could be seen as a good thing that the algorithm now is being controlled and the ownership is local. But my problem, and I think this is what everyone is questioning, is the people who are controlling it are a bunch of billionaire Zionists who are just going to push the pro-Israel narrative and continue to do that.
So it will become like every other media outlet, basically.
Unfortunately,
you know, that will make it the same. That's the same formula that controls basically all the other media outlets.
Exactly. I think our goal, James, should be to continue growing ourselves on TikTok and ensure that we don't become victims of the latest algorithm changes.
Shall we upload this episode to Rumble?
Yeah, we should. Let's put it on Rumble. Okay. Let's put it on Rumble as well. James, I think that's a good place to leave it for today. Anything else you want to mention this week?
All good, brother.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
See you next time.